This is Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn Herbert, and I bring revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on ground zero and across the globe.
One sister is dead and the second most likely to survive a senseless shooting Thursday, July 4th by Bia terrorist forces who broke into the family home in Gomham.
I am innocent here.
Congresswoman Karambasi's failure to visit Ambazonia during her visit to the Cameroons was no mistake. This is MANYU Judambe.
Given this long list of actions on behalf of Ambazonia without a clear mandate, why the hullabaloo about the Swiss deal? This is Lambert Mbom.
War is not a life we want for our people on ground zero. Ambazonia can either wish for a protracted war spanning decades like the wars in Eritrea and South Sudan, or our people can seize the opportunity of negotiations coming much earlier than other conflicts to nail the colonizer to the cross, secure freedom for our people and independence for our country. This is Tanya Jude Agua Ozugen.
If you have been asking another Ambazonian who gave them a mandate, please remember to answer my question. Who gave you a mandate to demand that they show a mandate? This is Lambert Mbom.
La République du Cameroon will win this fight as they did in the 60s if we fail to come together as one people and do the right things to gain our freedom. For Ambazonia Calling, Agboderi.
It's not working when every local chief wants to be the supreme leader. Instead, it needs teamwork among leaders. Christoph Hans Messner for Ambazonia Calling.
Waiting for a perfect moment to give a perfect response to a perfect audience is exactly the opposite of negotiations. Herbert.
The most patriotic job to do is to have no fear in denouncing those profiteering from the war. This is the monk from Ibalikumato.
This is edition 055 of Ambazonia Calling, coming to you the 7th day of July 2019.
Oh, freedom, freedom is coming, freedom is coming, freedom is coming, oh yes, I'm free.
We are shuffling off the way we package our program for this Sunday. We will have the Devil Unmasked at the very tail end of this program. So we will have the letter to Joshua just before we have the Devil Unmasked. And our guest is Brado Tabinyang Echo. He speaks about the issues within the interim government group, especially the issues around management of money, management of the recall of the government, the My Trip to BOYO money, and the audits that everyone who's been managing money at the IG group seems to be afraid of. One of the most recurrent questions that Ambazonians are raising is, who gave you a mandate to do A, B, or C on behalf of the people of Ambazonia? In our editorial for this week, Lambert Mbom has been asking himself exactly the same question.
The most fashionable thing for Ambazonians these days is to ask who has a mandate. Who gave those who went to Switzerland a mandate to act on behalf of Ambazonia? This is a legitimate question, but it comes late in the day and for reasons that have nothing to do with the mandate. Who remembered to ask who gave Fon Gorgi Dinka the mandate in 1984 to sue the Biya regime in the High Court in Bamenda on behalf of Ambazonia? Who gave the fund the mandate to name the country Ambazonia? How did Gorgi Dinka No, we did not prefer to be called British Southern Cameroons. The whole thing about mandate is hair-splitting. Until 2016, the SCNC chanted Freedom Land Allodium Glorious as the anthem of Southern Cameroons. Then came 2017 with the now Hail, Hail, Hail this land of glory. Who gave a mandate for the first anthem and then for its change? Ambazonians bask today in the glory of the Banjul verdict, which recognized Southern Cameroonians as a people different from the people of La République with the right to self-determination. Who has remembered to ask who gave Dr. Kevin Gumner the mandate to sue La République? When the ADF launched the armed resistance and splashed pictures in Daddy, how many cared to ask who gave them the mandate? How many asked who gave the late General Ivan Ba the mandate to fight on behalf of Ambazonia? Without a mandate from anyone, the amber coin is selling itself as the currency of Ambazonia. The national AK-47 campaign is managed by one person on behalf of one of the liberation movements and in the name of Ambazonia. The leader of one movement was going to make an oil deal on behalf of all of Ambazonia. The Global Initiative to End the Cameroon's Colonial Conflict, GI3C, has lambasted the deal reached in last week in Switzerland, claiming the leaders did not have a mandate. Yet, that organization had no mandate when in February 2019, it called on the UN Human Rights Council to establish an independent international fact-finding mission or similar international mechanism to investigate serious human rights violations in Ambazonia. Everyone acting in good faith has done so first in their name as bona fide Ambazonians and second in the name of the sovereign people of Ambazonia. Given this long list of actions on behalf of Ambazonia without a clear mandate, why the hullabaloo about the Swiss deal? Do not get me wrong, Ambazonians need to get to some form of open government with a mandate from the people, provided through elections, which some of those asking who has a mandate have staunchly rejected. Ambazonians must take to heart the words of soon-to-be canonized John Henry Cardinal Newman, and I quote, "A man would do nothing if he waited until he could do it so well that no one could find fault," end of quote. If you have been asking another Ambazonian who gave them a mandate, please remember to answer my question. Who gave you a mandate to demand that they show a mandate? Ambazonians cannot eat their cake and have it. If they like the outcome but hate the persons who achieved it, you hear them asking, who gave them a mandate? When you hear such questions, tell the person to go to hell, please. This is Lambert Mbom for Ambazonia Calling.
What Cameroon has done to us, I want you never to forget. The pain they have brought to bear on this generation, I want you never to forget. Not out of hate, but so that the next generation will remember and make sure they do the things they are supposed to do, never to go through this again.
I will continue to play my part to ask the people of Southern Cameroons to take their revolution into their hands and continue the fight to liberate themselves.
I'm sorry to say, because of France's policies in Africa, in French Africa, the state of La République du Cameroon do not have any pressure on them to find a way to resolve this issue, because they are always thinking that no matter what happens, France will always be there to give them coverage.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner of the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until you have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling.
On account of a longer than normal Devil on Mask segment at the very end of this program today, we are going to be rolling out just one news summary for the week. Here is Innocent here with our news wrap-up for the week.
In spite not setting foot on Ambazonian soil during a brief fact-finding mission of a 7-member U.S. congressional delegation to the Cameroons, California Congresswoman Karen Bass continues calling on the government and restorationists to respect human rights, end all violence, and begin talks on the conflict that is well into its third year.
The U.S. Democratic representative for California, Karen Bass, gives an ultimatum to both the Cameroonian government and the Anglophone separatist fighters.
Speaking to journalists Monday, July 1st in Yaoundé, she reiterated the American stand for dialogue, a peaceful resolution without conditions.
A U.S. congressional delegation visiting Cameroon has called for unconditional talks between the government and the rebels on the separatist conflicts in the country.
She added, quote, "We recently passed a resolution in Congress saying this, and we wanted to come and see firsthand what is happening in the country," end quote. The remarks of the Congresswoman came after meeting with La République du Cameroon government ministers, as well as refugees and displaced people in Yaoundé who are running away from the war in Ambazonia. News of the estranged relationship between the Swiss and President Paul Biya of Cameroon may pose as a diplomatic hurdle going forward in the Swiss-led initiative between La République du Cameroon and Ambazonia, says Dr. Ebenezer Akwanga of the African People's Liberation Movement, APLM, after what some consider as a shameful repatriation of President Biya from Switzerland Thursday.
Authorities in Switzerland handed suspended sentences to at least 5 members of his security team after they were arrested on Tuesday for assaulting a journalist.
With a rather swift conviction of 6 of his guards by the Swiss judiciary earlier in the week, then an exemplary popular online drive by Swiss lawmakers calling for his eviction, the dictator caught the earliest available flight back home to Cameroon amid intensified calls for demonstrations Saturday by the anti-Sardina movement in Europe.
Prince Ntumfoyn Hansen is a journalist in Geneva.
Hansen Fonchanji, a former reporter from Cameroon, currently based in Switzerland as an international consultant, said the breakdown in relations between the Swiss and Biya does not bode well for the Swiss-led initiative, and the backlash would mostly hurt the prospects of the most glaring path to a negotiated settlement that has come upon Ambazonia so far.
The Federal Department of Foreign Affairs of Switzerland, they were very angry. They had called the ambassador of Cameroon to Switzerland on the day of the incident, on the 26th of June 2019, describing it as unacceptable that they respect freedom of the expression and the press, and of course the rules of public space. And so they actually, on that day, even before the ruling yesterday, the Foreign Department had already said what happened was an assault and unacceptable.
Dr. Lucas Ayabacho and the Ambazonian Governing Council, AGOVC, are now fixating their diplomatic arsenal on obtaining a guarantor state for Ambazonia. In a much publicized outing Saturday, Dr. Ayaba went after the Swiss-led process, questioning the motives and qualifications of the Swiss government and Humanitarian Dialogue, the organization that so far has successfully laid the foundation for preliminary talks between La République du Cameroon and Ambazonia. He equally expressed disdain for the Ambazonian pro-independence groups that have been involved, characterizing them as inexperienced, but acknowledging, unlike most within the AGOVC, that the other leaders went to Switzerland for capacity building. Noteworthy, meantime, that for all the talk against the Swiss-led talks, Dr. Cho did not highlight gains achieved by the AGOVC initiative in Basque Country or how far traveled the AGOVC advised European Union resolution has gone. Dr. Ayaba was also bold to say he is convinced Ambazonian restoration forces will win in a face-to-face matchup with La République du Cameroon. The spokesman for the Movement for the Restoration of the Independence of Southern Cameroons, Maurice Ntumfoyn Herbert, has called on Ambazonians in the United States to coalesce and rebut lies, falsehoods, distortions and misrepresentations that Betty Asomo, Dion Gute, and other colonial La République du Cameroon officials washed the U.S. congressional delegation in. The Maurice spokesman did not doubt the ability of the U.S. congressional delegation to see through the lies, complete with the gift that the evil regime gifted Congresswoman Karen Bass. Ntumfoyn Herbert said the government of Cameroon had done what it does best, and now it is time for Ambazonians to roll up their sleeves and put together the story of Ambazonia as has unfolded, not the lies presented by La République du Cameroon. The African Forum, known as the Forum, former African heads of states and government, and other African leaders is looking for a possible and acceptable venue to convene a symposium on the Cameroons regarding the ongoing war between colonial La République du Cameroon and Ambazonia. The African Forum, otherwise known as the Forum of Former African Heads of State and Government and other African leaders, is looking for a possible and acceptable venue to convene a symposium on the Cameroons regarding the ongoing war between Colonial République du Cameroon and Ambazonia, convinced that the symposium will help greatly to empower it better assist the government and people of Cameroon as they work to address the challenges facing this sister African country. Skeptics and critics, however, question the sincerity of the forum and see a blatant attempt to delay the Swiss-led initiative that has so far received endorsements from the US, the EU, the UN, and are waiting for more to come. Whereas Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, is currently favored, organizers are reportedly open to any other African country which will agree with the forum to provide a venue for the symposium. The current chair of the forum is Joaquim Alberto Chisamo, who is the former president of the Republic of Mozambique. The organization is based in the Republic of South Africa. Finally, one sister is dead and the second most likely to survive a senseless shooting Thursday, July 4th by Bia terrorist forces who broke into the family home in Gomham, a neighborhood in the outskirts of Bamenda, northern zone. Reports say their brother, who was also in the house at the time of the shooting, saved himself by hiding in the ceiling. Innocentia for Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God be the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia rising, rising, rising. Ambazonia rising to fall no more. Ambazonia rising, rising, rising. Ambazonia rising to fall no more. Them are shooting us, them are killing us, them are burning our houses, so them are killing us, them are shooting us, them are raping our children. Wait till we do, wait till we do, wait till we do, wait till we do, wait till we do. Atanga Chipolo, wait till we do, Mr. Bia, wait till we do, Nari Publico, wait till we do. UN is watching when they are killing us, they our children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God be the watchman of this nation.
I have been wondering how we could tell the people of Ambazonia what exactly is going on within the framework of the Swiss-led process for a negotiated settlement in Ambazonia. And the analogy that I would like to use here will be the one of a football match, a soccer match. What has happened with Switzerland is that the announcement has been made that Ambazonia will play against La République du Cameroun in a match that will be umpired by Switzerland and whose match commissioners will be the European Union, the United States, the United Kingdom, the United Nations, and other powers that are going to still be joining this major initiative. When they tell you that a football match is going to play, it doesn't mean that the match is on. It doesn't mean that the venue of the match has been picked. It doesn't mean that the date of the match has been picked. When you agree that you have to play that match to determine who wins and therefore who owns Ambazonia really, then you go back, you select your team, you select your own team. You find a really good coach who can prepare your team. You go into the physical practice, in this case, our intellectual preparation, our legal preparation. We prepare ourselves for that match. We bother about what our team is doing. When you pick your team and you have picked your coaches, you have picked your physical builders, you have picked your chenotherapists, and you are confident that your team has trained for the game, then you turn up for the game when the game is called. You are confident that if the referee, in this case Switzerland, is calling fouls against your team, which are not by the book, the match commissioners, the United Nations, the United States, the UK, the EU will be there. They will be the ones who will be charged with implementing. As soon as Ambazonia beats La République on the field, they will be the ones who will be charged with implementing the process, will ensuring that the process is respected. That's what is a guarantor. Those are the people we can pick to become guarantors. But if they announce that the way by which we will determine who owns Ambazonia is for us to go out there and face La République with our legal documentation around a table or around a football match, and that the winner will become the rightful owner of Ambazonia with sovereignty over it, and you decide that you don't want to play that game, it basically means you're taking yourself out of the equation. It means you're accepting defeat by forfeiture. This, very simply put, using this football analogy, my people in Ambazonia, this is what is under preparation. Anyone suggesting that the match is already on, that the pitch has been picked, that the game is ongoing, and that some players are playing for La République, anyone saying that doesn't know anything about what's going on.
If you go to Moyuka, nobody they live here. If you go to Munyenge, nobody they stay there. Everybody don't run away because of wuru wuru. But when we pray, oh, revival will take place in our land. Yeah, for sure.
Many of those who have stressed the importance of Ambazonia going to the negotiating table point to the fact that Ambazonia has a slam dunk legal case to win against La République du Cameroun and its official godfather, France. One believer in the rock-solid nature of that case is our very own Tanyi Jude Agwaozogen.
All warriors know that the end game of every war is a negotiated settlement. Getting to the negotiating table is a matter of when, not if. A year and a half since being forced into war by colonial Cameroon, the people of Ambazonia are luckier than most other peoples to be at the verge of entering into negotiations with the aggressors and colonizer. It took both Eritrea and South Sudan 30 years to bring their colonizers, respectively Ethiopia and Sudan, to the negotiating table. Ambazonia can either wish for a protracted war spanning decades like the wars in Eritrea and South Sudan, or our people can seize the opportunity of negotiations coming much earlier than in other conflicts to nail the colonizer to the cross, secure freedom for our people and independence for our country. Those prosecuting the war against recolonization in Ambazonia cannot also be seen as eschewing a negotiated settlement. The hawks on both sides are promising actions in the near future that will bring their opponents to their knees and force surrender. The truth is that there will be no real surrender from either side. If history is a good guide, we can bet with every dollar we have on the likelihood that La République and its godfather France will pursue a proxy war of destabilization of Ambazonia long after our homeland would have been free of the yoke of annexation. War is not a life we want for our people on ground zero. It is a misery the Biya regime hoped it could impose in order to force our people to rebel against their own revolution. So far, that effort has failed. But it has left our people on ground zero bleeding from the war crimes of Biya terrorist forces and fake Amber boys kidnapping, torturing, and exacting ransoms from innocent civilians. In a war, not only military action counts. Action taken off the battlefield can score victories unattainable through military means. That is why it is often said that the pen is mightier than the sword. Last week in Switzerland, Ambazonia beat colonial Cameroon at the elite political chess game. La République threw a bid of negotiated settlement at Ambazonia, pretty confident that Ambazonia would turn it down. In colonial Cameroon's political calculus, the choice of Switzerland as a mediator would be repulsive to Ambazonians. After all, Félix Momy had been assassinated by French operatives in Switzerland. Paul Biya reportedly has Swiss citizenship and his permanent abode in the cozy confines of Continental Hotel in Switzerland were all odds likely to elicit vituperative reactions and outright denunciation from our people against Switzerland as a mediator. Did I mention that Switzerland is a repository of the fruits of the loot of Mr. Biya? The colonizers expected Ambazonians to say no to a negotiated settlement on these grounds and on the grounds that our military gains on ground zero are reversible. Ambazonian representatives who met in Switzerland last week demonstrated that they are a step ahead of the colonizer and all those who were seeking an opportunity to paint our people as having rejected a negotiated settlement. Nothing done in Switzerland last week prevents the people of Ambazonia to pursue military action on the ground. Within less than a week of the decision being taken, those who wanted to paint Switzerland as pro-Biya have to find another excuse after Swiss authorities banned pro-Biya's demonstrations in Geneva and as of Friday expelled the dictator, declared persona non grata at the end of a petition process launched by Swiss parliamentarians. If anything, Ambazonia has new allies in Switzerland today, within the press corps and within parliament, to stand with us as we negotiate recognition for an independent Ambazonia. Colonial Cameroon played this game on Nigeria during the dispute over the Bakassi Peninsula. The Biya regime knew it had a solid legal case and did not spend its energies on a military process. Ambazonia has a rock-solid legal case against La République. We have a slam-dunk legal case to win at the negotiating table. This is Tani Jude Agua Ozugen from Ambazonia College.
So get on now on the train. Everybody get on now on the train. Mothers, fathers, get on now on the train. Children, get on now on the train. Sister, brothers, get on now on the train. Husbands, wives too, get on now on the train. Oh, Abba, Father, bless us. Oh, Jesus Christus, guide us. Oh, Holy Spirit, lead us on the restoration journey of our liberty. So, restoration train is our freedom train.
The United States Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs has been mentioning federalism within a one and indivisible Cameroon quite a bit. Agbo Derek says the blame is on Ambazonians for failing to unite, for failing to build cohesion, for failing to be inclusive. It is a message we cannot hear enough of.
Point your fingers at yourselves, Ambazonians. The problem here is not Mr. Peter Nagy, but Ambazonians who refuse to accept reality. Mr. Nagy's diplomatic outings were well coded, and any cold-headed person would have noticed that with no problem from what he said before his first encounter with Mr. Paul Biya and what he said after. His outings pushed me to make an audio where I told Ambazonians that the Americans had said actually nothing different about our struggle, except Norway that called for humanitarian intervention without any coded language. Wake up, Ambazonians. Time is moving very fast. La République du Cameroon will win this fight as they did in the 60s if we fail to come together as one people and do the right things that are required of us to gain our freedom. And as we resist the occupiers, we should remember the oath our ancestors have with the Ancient of Days. We should as well remember that there is power in the golden statue that must be destroyed before Ambazonia will be free. This can be achieved by Ambazonians collaborating together for one nation, one people, one vision. For Ambazonia calling, Agboderi, Oslo, Norway.
Prisoner 46664. Prisoner 46664. Can't give up, no justice, no peace. Can't give up, cause sun's gonna rise anyway. It's just a moment in time we are living.
Negotiations, that word is in the mouth of every Ambazonian. What does it mean exactly? Here is Albert with some key facts about what exactly negotiations are.
There is no perfect time for negotiations. The best time is now. There is no perfect negotiator. The best one is a platform. Use it. Negotiation is not compromise. It is a platform to state positions and seek solutions. Negotiation is neither a legal path nor a political strategy. It is an expression of ethical values on which these two thrives. Negotiation is a sign of strength and good intent, especially to the initiator and or willing participant. It plays into the semantics of good intent. Ambazonians have the burden setting the agenda, not the negotiator. Ambazonians have the burden of proving or disproving the other party, not the negotiator. Negotiation is not an event, but a process. It doesn't pick winners and losers, weak and strong, liars and righteous. The term negotiation provides a platform for both parties to strive on. Negotiation is not coming to fix Ambazonian leadership disaster. It is coming to put an end to the senseless war and provide a solution that the people of Ambazonia deserves. The question of why, how, who, what, and when helps define the methodology. Waiting for a perfect moment to give a perfect response to a perfect audience is exactly the opposite of negotiations. If Ambazonians do not write their own story, others will write it for them. Albert Nza.
Since the days of John the Baptist, the kingdom of God suffered violence. Let the violent one takes it by force. You're on the ground, king. Boom. We cry about what they cry. Don't tire about what why.
Women are they crying, crying. Boy are they crying, crying. About what they crying, crying. We they crying. Not free me, women are they crying, crying. Boy are they crying, crying. We they crying. Not free me, women are they crying, crying. Boy are they crying, crying. We they crying. Not free me.
Sick and tired of this like Republic una free. Amango today inside pay no the free. We president on the side say all man of yay. Grand ambition, fuck that slogan no yay. Presido, the pay jaga jaga. Una take all in the weavers. they need 102 students for Senagers. Una select 2 Anglophones, Eskenagers. Bia, Yang, Dijon, prison. Eske we know why man show BBC they for prison. They don't some all we then start for colors Anglophones. Fuck up the government, we ain't tools. Minister for communication, no fit talk good English. Southern Cameroon independence, that's my wish. No good third roads, no seaports, no light, no water, no airports. President, you overget fake promises. Wait till happen failing us, you bring us diseases. But men are the cry, we are the ask why. You don't come for that chair, you don't go shake, you go die.
Men are the cry, we are the cry, about what they cry, we the cry, you not free me, but men are the cry, we are the cry, we the cry, you not free me.
What happened in Switzerland last week is big. It is very big for Ambazonia. Don't let anyone fool you that Mr. Biya really wants to negotiate. No, he does not. Mr. Biya did not approach the Swiss because he really wants to negotiate. We know that he did it because he thought that he was setting a trap for Ambazonia. Mr. Biya wants a Cameroonian dialogue in which he is patron. He doesn't want any third-party mediated negotiations mediated by Switzerland and witnessed by the international community, the EU, the US, the UN, the UK. He does not want that. Mr. Biya just happened to find himself in his own trap. Those who are telling you that they are not ready for negotiations are exactly saying what Foncha said to the United Nations in 1961, that we were not ready for independence, that we wanted a little more time. We don't want any more time. We were ready for independence in 1961. In fact, we were ready for independence before 1961. We are ready for negotiations now. The people who are competent, let them step forward, let them step up to the plate, let them deliver for Ambazonia. No more excuses.
Hey, what do you want them from us? Must I suffer? Come out for our country, come out. I say this one a danger because some people no go ever chop this jangi. Come out, who be you, poverty, who be you, come out, come for life, who be you, who be you, come out, who be you, corruption, who be you, come out, who be you, Father heal our land from the likes of Gomorrah. Father heal our land from the likes of Lucifer. Come out.
Too many are hoping that they can play ground zero versus the diaspora versus ground one. It is a futile attempt at dividing a united people. None of these segments of our communities, the diaspora, ground one or ground zero, can function without the other. Each of them complements and completes the actions and activities of the other. Each is needed for success in the restoration of the independence of Ambazonia. Here is the monk from Ibalikumato.
It is convenient to make utterances like, ground zero will not fail you. That ground zero will not fail has never been in doubt, but ground zero is connected to the diaspora like a baby in the womb is connected to its mother via the umbilical cord. That has proven to be at once a blessing and a curse for this revolution. The endless infighting and double-crossing among diaspora-based groups and leaders has had damning consequences on the morale, fighting power of our liberation forces on ground zero. Didn't the diaspora-based interim government group go to the extent of banning other liberation movements except for the ASC? didn't county by county justify the kicking out of volunteer self-defenders from one zone for the simple reason that they did not hail from that zone. No one is stranger anymore to accounts of hostage-taking for ransom. Everyone has heard of the cartels in this revolution, all of them crime syndicates managed by diaspora-based individuals who are willing to sell their grandmother and everyone else in their family in order to be the next big man in Ambazonia. The audios continue to ring in most ears of ransom demands being made to a priest of the Catholic Church, suggesting that absolutely no one and no institution is off limits. When the time comes, experts in war crimes will have to integrate new verbs into their vocabulary once they uncover the full details of what it means to guzang somebody. Every actor in war must have a plan not only for prosecuting the war, but even more importantly for winning the peace. Winning the peace in Ambazonia's case is winning recognition as Africa's 55th sovereign nation. It is with that in mind that the aversion shown last week by some Ambazonians to a negotiated settlement has to be a function of crass ignorance, reckless insensitivity, or callous indifference to the plight of our people on ground zero. The most strategic question is not which route is more immediately satisfying. Is it to prolong the misery of war or to cut to the chase of a negotiated settlement that restores independence for Ambazonia? That is the question. In answering it, we must never lose sight of the fact that in La République du Cameroon, as in Ambazonia, there are people and movements that are now benefiting enormously from war. Generals and commanders within the colonial forces of Mr. Biya are milking whatever is left in the near-bankrupt treasury of La République du Cameroon to line their pockets. Groups and individuals within Ambazonia and in the diaspora are making millions on get-rich-fast war scams. A majority of Ambazonians must remain laser-focused on getting to restoration of independence as soon as possible. To get there, they must decry bloodletting. The most patriotic job to do is to have no fear in denouncing those profiteering from the war. The excellent news I can share is that more and more Ambazonians are beginning to see through the fluffy platitudes of those who promise only more war, including extending the war into La République du Cameroon, those who shun the path to a negotiated settlement with the elusive promise that their forces will kick La République du Cameroon out of Ambazonia within a week, as Shakespeare warns. Beware of anything that is full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. This is the monk from Ibalikumato for Ambazonia Calling.
We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfuka of the week.
It is that time in the program again when we must find out who is standing on the top of the charts of foolishness. Here is Veronique Ntumfoyn with the Queens and Kings of Foolish for this week.
The Biya regime is staging more drama and using it to blackmail Ambazonian liberation forces. In one of the videos this week, the regime shows some of its fake Amber Boys molesting a man stripped down to his undergarments. The fake Amber Boys surrounding him brandish machetes and clubs, strapped with red pieces of cloth, pretending to be Odeshi. They pretend to torture the so-called victim. The victim acts like his hands are bound behind his back. A few seconds into the video, the victim's hands held behind his back come loose, and everyone can see he was not even bound. The so-called torturers pretend to beat him, but each time they splash water on his face instead. The so-called victim confesses to working with the military, claims that as an agent of the colonizer, he was going to be paid 5 million francs CFA. The victim forgets that his eyes were supposed to be laced with pepper, and when he opens them, they are as clean can be. He rejects being force-fed a joint of marijuana. But when he finally takes a puff of the stuff, the victim does not choke from inhaling, which would be the usual reaction for a first-timer. These are the kinds of videos that La République has been sharing with Human Rights Watch and getting lazy researchers like Ilaria Allegrozzi to claim that Ambazonians are victimizing their own people for failing even to stage such poor drama on video. Paul Atanganji and his fake Amber Boys are this week's third place finishers for the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week.
Nyamfuka them all.
The second place finisher this week is one man who has often passed around on Ambazonian platforms as a fine detective and investigator. Over time, the flat-out lies he has told are beginning to catch up with him, and his sweet tongue is proving too little to cover for the falsehoods. Digimas is his name. Choosing between not calling out Digimas and calling him out is like choosing between a witch and a fool. The fool may not know what to do if a house goes up in flames, and a fool is standing right next to buckets full of water, or next to a faucet with running water, or next to a fire extinguisher. The witch who sets the house on fire in the world of witches, in some of our traditional settings, is not to be excused. Not so for the ignorance of the fool, who, like Digimas, feigns knowledge of all things until the moment comes for the fool to grab the hose with water and extinguish the fire. Digimas is like the dangerous fool who watches and reports on how beautiful the flames were that ate up the entire house. For being the jack of all trades and master of none, Digimas is this week's second place finisher for the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week.
Nyamfuka them all.
Running away with the crown this week is the so-called defense minister of colonial Cameroon, Joseph Betty Asomo. This week, he devoted more time hatching, cooking up, and selling some of the tallest tales on earth about the war of annexation Cameroon is waging against Ambazonia. After feeding organizations like Human Rights Watch and newspapers like Jeune Afrique with such garbage, this week, Joseph Betty Asomo fed the United States congressional delegation, headed by the leader of the Black Caucus, Representative Karen Bass, with the big brother of such lies. Joseph Betty Asomo, whose forces have killed each other in explosives, who have not hesitated to behead their own or Ambazonian civilians, the forces that have chopped off the heads of mortal remains abandoned in government-controlled mortuaries, and have pretended that those were soldiers beheaded used this week to provide a PowerPoint presentation to Representative Karen Bass and delegation claiming the atrocities to be the work of Amber Boys. The regime has Joseph Betty Asomo project images of people with their hands or fingers mutilated, blaming Ambazonian freedom fighters for those crimes, for trying to mislead the Congress of the United States, for thinking that information received will not be cross-checked against real facts. Joseph Betty Asomo is this week's winner of the Crown of Shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week.
Nyamfuka them all.
This is Veronique Vetimfe for Ambazonia Calling.
It started like a joke and I smiled. From Meme to Momo, we said no violence. Now I know not how to smile, 'cause my loved ones are gone. There is no place to call home. Our homes have been burnt. I am homeless in my homeland. There is no place to call my home. Homeless, homeless, homeless in my homeland. When are we going to have a dialogue? We have buried more than enough. Nothing heals the past like time. When are we going to have a dialogue? We've been marginalized enough. You may fool some people sometime. You cannot fool them all the time. Homeless, homeless. I am homeless in my home.
We've got a letter in this edition from a German Ambazonian, our brother Christoph Hans Mesmer. He's well known to those of you who live in the United States, not so well known for those of our compatriots on Ground Zero and on Ground One. Here is Christoph Hans Mesmer with his message to the people of Ambazonia.
Fellow Ambazonians, I am a German with an Ambazonian wife who loves Ambazonia and the Ambazonians with their spirit of freedom, self-determination and higher education. I hail each and every Ambazonian fighter because they stand for higher values like democracy, peace, and the end of the corruption by neo-colonial dictatorial regimes like that of the war criminal and election rigger Paul Biya. I really hate all types of colonialism, be it from the French, be it from the British, be it from the Germans, be it from the Chinese. It's just not right, because every people has the right to govern itself and to own their own land, where their ancestors have lived for centuries. Ambazonian resources belong to Ambazonians and nobody else, period. But I also see realistically that the Ambazonians have to overcome their eternal divisions and contradictions. Otherwise, they have no chance against colonizers like China, for example. It's not working when every local chief wants to be the supreme leader. Instead, it needs teamwork among leaders and constitutional reform, which brings every leader and citizen under a new law, an Ambazonian law, which forces everyone to stop corruption and to start national solidarity. The camaraderie between the Ambazonian soldiers, this all for one, one for all, that is the virgin offspring of this new positive paradigm, which we have to build on and to stay loyal to. The Ambazonian soldiers are the true pillars of the revolution, and we in the diaspora have to tell the world that they are a role model for whole Africa. They are the liberators from the outdated neo-colonial concept of France-Afrique, which is a vice to Africa and the whole world, having killed and maltreated hundreds of millions of Africans. This concept must die. But of course, France and Switzerland try everything to keep that concept of neo-colonial exploitation going and to keep a dictator in Cameroon in place who was never elected by the people, but spends a lot of oil money in Geneva and Paris. I tell you, when they want to bring Ambazonia and French Cameroon on the round table now in Geneva for pre-talks before negotiations, the first thing the Ambazonians must do is to question the legitimacy of both the enemies and the own representatives, because that is always how colonizers are doing it. Bring fake representatives or weak persons to the negotiation table who want to earn some crumbs by giving away the whole bread, and then writing some resolutions completely apart from the people's mandate. No. With France and their neo-colonial Cameroonian puppet regime, you cannot negotiate in a soft way, but you need to be ultra hard in your standpoints, and you must not give away one single square meter of your territory. Please, you may not like me as a German in the struggle, but actually my nationality is not relevant. But that I studied political philosophy and I listened to guerrilla professionals is relevant. And I tell you, that what we are fighting here is not so much Biya himself, but the French type of neo-colonial, centralist, mal-governing, corruption and exploitation. Nothing can thrive under French puppet dictators and neo-colonial pseudo-constitutions. So this fight is about removal of all corrupted ones from power, and therefore it is so important that we are also removing the corrupted ones among our own rows and replacing them by good leaders and good hard negotiators of integrity. So now is the time when the commanders of Ground Zero shall determine who shall represent Ambazonia in international negotiations. Because with our commanders we can go sure that they are hard and of integrity in their position. They will never give away our constitutional rights to independence and make dubious concessions to the enemy. But we also need experts on the legal and diplomatic field to guide any international talks, and not every expert is a military leader. That's why we all need to be very critical with any leader, in quotation marks, who says he's a group leader or interim leader. Is he really competent, reliable, of integrity? Does he really do what he says? We should never hail any leader just because we like him personally. A leader has to fulfill certain competence and reliability criteria. Among those is, for example, the ability to collaborate with other leaders, the courage to step from the background to the foreground and educate the people, and the ability to trick the enemy in negotiations by making concessions which do not endanger our end goal of self-governance and independence from neo-colonial vices. So, skip the habit of shouting about this or that person and start connecting our homeland defense with strong institution building, strong anti-colonial law, strong discipline and funding obligations. We will win this war, and not by big leader here and big negotiator there, but by our internal discipline creation among all Ambazonians to go zero tolerance with the French type of neo-colonial corruption, exploitation and occupation. Only then we will come free. Only when we help our leaders to keep discipline we will become free. Only when we have leaders and people who keep to the new rules, to signatures under new anti-colonial treaties, to unconditional loyalty to our brave homeland defense. Only then we will come free. And it is not like the little Amberland would have no chance militarily against the giant French. No. The French Cameroonese military is not that big, not that strong, and not that motivated. We Ambazonians can easily defeat them if we only keep to discipline and the new rules. And one major part of the new rules is that we declare the neo-colonial dependency treaties with France null and void for the territory of Ambaland, and we motivate the anti-Sardinars to work also towards it. Stay strong, dear Ambalanders, and hold together until we reach BOYO. Long live Ambazonia. Christoph Hans Messner for Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God be the watchman of this nation.
All hail Ambazonia, a nation of the free, where the bounty of nature is God's gift to all her own. As we plow the fields, we thank God for giving us the land. Arise, arise, men and women of valor, for posterity will remember you for defending our dear land. For posterity will remember you for defending our dear land. On Thursday, Representative Karen Bass returned to the United States from the Cameroons after failing to visit Ambazonia in the course of her travels there. Why exactly did the U.S. congressional delegation not visit Ambazonia? That is a question I posed to Barrister Manjong Jutambe.
Well, we must understand that she and her team were guests in colonial Cameroon, and their movements are bound to be controlled by their host. That notwithstanding, the fact that colonial Cameroon, through its Minister of Disinformation, went out of its way to push their position against Ambazonia by feeding Karen Bass's team with lies, struggling as always with videos of Atang and Jipo's hoodlums passing for Amber boys committing atrocities, should surprise none. Their hope and our intention is to use such images and videos to lure and con the Western world in general and the international community in particular for permission and time to enable them exert even more violence and carnage on Ambazonia and its people under the guise of fighting terrorism. Knowing what we know today, one must wonder if Colonial Yaoundé had the courage to show Karen Bass images and videos of its marauding soldiers marching into Ambazonia, executing in plain view any and every human on their path, including even the mentally challenged and in some cases, livestock. Did they show Mrs. Karen Bass images of the charred bodies of Mami Happy of Kwakwa and Pa Francis Frumbuma of Ntumfoyn Batu? What about the multitude of young and elderly victims that they've summarily executed, beheaded, and or burnt alive in their homes? Do we think the lifeless body of Mrs. Niba and her baby in my native Tuba in Bambui, gunned down in their living room while she was breastfeeding her child, was shown to Karen Bass? One must be stupid to think that images of 4-month-old Martha Niba in Moyoka, whose tiny body received not less than 12 bullets from Mr. Bia's gangsters, was shown to Mrs. Karen Bass and her team. What of images from the Pinyin massacre and all the lifeless and incinerated bodies of multiple Ambazonian youths in Bali? Are we to believe that Colonial Yaoundé was courageous and or stupid enough to let Karen Bass view images of our girls and women wailing after they had been gang raped by Mr. Bia's barbarians and savages from colonial Cameroon? Lest we forget, what about images of hundreds of villages, schools and hospitals that Mr. Bia's soldiers had torched? Should we also believe that Colonial Yaoundé had the nerves to show them to Karen Bass and her team? Your guess on these questions are as good as mine. At Ambazonia Calling, we've long held and articulated the view that Ambazonians must wake up because we've got our work cut out for us. If we think there was a conspiracy leading up to what culminated into the 1961 fiasco by our parents and grandparents, then permit me to be the bearer of bad news in stating unequivocally that what lies ahead of us today is worse. It is my firm conviction that Congresswoman Karen Bassey's failure to visit Ground Zero during her visit to the Cameroons was absolutely no mistake. Her talk of a one and indivisible Cameroon wasn't a slip of the tongue. It is a well-calculated effort aimed at luring Ambazonia back into the shackles of La République du Cameroon and colonial France. We must shine our eyes and resist them fiercely each step of the way. Alternatively, Karen Bassey's failure to visit Ground Zero and La République du Cameroon's inability to ensure that her delegation had the opportunity to visit Ground Zero is ample proof that Ambazonia is a separate country from La République du Cameroon. The visas that Karen Bass and her team had took them into colonial Cameroon. She had no visa into Ambazonia and hence couldn't visit a country she was not permitted to enter. Further, it is not beyond La République du Cameroon to play it safe, fearing what Karen Bass and her team may uncover should they enter into Ambazonia and happen to talk to any of our brothers and sisters on the ground. Their version of what their daily experiences are may blow up whatever La République du Cameroon might have cooked up and fed Karen Bass and her team with. I'm sure we are all aware of Mrs. Karen Bass's Resolution 358 that's pending before the U.S. House of Representatives. Are we also expected to think that Resolution 358 is a mistake? It is about time we fold our sleeves and pants and get into the trenches to fight this thing out. Ambazonia needs every hand on deck if we intend to succeed in pushing back as hard as we must. Anything less is ill-advised. As one people, we must put our petty differences aside and work as a team. We must not give in to colonial Cameroon and its lobbyists. We must deny them even the slightest breathing space. We must confront the likes of Congresswoman Karen Bass with hard facts and truths she and her team have never seen, heard, and or been privy to. Those facts that we know force La République du Cameroon to ensure they keep the ears and eyes of Karen Bass and her team away from. I'm talking of those truths that must have informed La République du Cameroon's decision to stop Karen Bass and her team from visiting Ambazonia. These truths must be told, and if we Ambazonians don't tell our story and our truth, someone else will. Need I remind you as to who will gladly do the telling and what version of our story and truth they will be telling the world? This is Manjung Jut Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Because you have your army of occupation out in West Cameroon, you believe that when the people will rise, even if you took the whole of the French army and added to yours, you will never bring them down.
And I call on all Cameroon soldiers to lay down their arms within Ambazonia and to turn their arms against the very system that has made them slaves in the land of their birth.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, how does it feel to be persona non grata? To be sans-papier in Europe? How did it feel to live under house arrest at the Intercontinental Hotel in Geneva for a week under the threat of all those anti-Sardinars? How did it feel on Friday to be thrown out of Switzerland completely and to have to return to Angola? How the Lion Man has fallen, to have to flee with the Lion Man's tail folded in between his hind legs, unable to raise a finger to defend your right to stay on in Europe, unable to bribe the Swiss immigration and the Swiss justice system to tarry the humiliation, to look away and not to punish the brutish behavior of Nkunkuma's bodyguards. How easy it would have been in Angola to send every one of those anti-Sardinar units to Nkondengi to fire live bullets at them, killing God alone knows how many, and then to arraign everyone else that survived on terrorism charges before a military tribunal functioning preferably in your native Bulu. It is not yet time to exclaim how the mighty are fallen, because your full fall is yet to come, and you were never mighty in any case. You are a miserable, hate-filled, shameless devil with a capital D. No one should wish you dead, because death will be the lighter punishment and good riddance. The 10 gods of witchcraft who were evoked at Karafutamzu in Abolawa ahead of your reselection by the National Electoral Commission just want you to survive long enough to see how a people can humiliate a brute evil dictator like you. To every kingdom is war's creatures. You are the world's worst tyrant, so deeply steeped, soaked in and dripping with the blood of innocent civilians that even Geneva, so used to hiding dictators and their loot from public scrutiny, finally had no choice than to unmask, publicly shame you, and throw you out of the city gates. The last time such a thing happened in Geneva was 220 to 230 years ago, when the then colonized people of Switzerland rose against the Germano-Roman Empire that colonized that land in those days. Geneva was sending you a message. It is that there is no place to hide from the coming decolonization and humiliation by the people of Ambazonia. The cheerleaders who believe that they can prop up your regime by hiring crowds to attend to you at the airport, to chant your praises outside the Palace Angola, they know that the head of the fish is rotten and that it is only a matter of time before the rest of the body goes the way of all flesh and the stench fills the air. You are a sickening, rotten bastard, deserving of inclusion in the hall of the most adept apprentices of Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Sani Abacha. We have been told by Radio 1 Battery these last few days that you have apparently refused to eat anything since coming under attack by the anti-Sardina units in Geneva. Listen carefully. Who cares if you are not eating? What have you been waiting for to starve yourself to death? Is that your version of a hunger strike? Is that how you were told a hunger strike is organized for no just cause? Do you know how many millions of people you have starved to death through your chop broke pot policies? If you want anyone to take you seriously, why don't you do the right thing? Why don't you go and kiss a power transformer or just get hit by some lightning? What have you been waiting for? Why don't you pick up a rope, find the nearest tree in Gola, and hang from its firmest branch? You have kept Satan waiting all these years, and it is about time you did the honorable thing. It's about time you return your miserable, good-for-nothing life to Lucifer. You don't have to believe me, but the man and monster that you are will not be missed. On the other side of this jingle, we've got the devil unmasked. Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out. It is our pleasure to welcome Comrade Brado Tabinyang-Echu. He's just put out nearly a 3-hour long video statement. Welcome, Brother Brado Tabinyang.
Thank you, Ntumfoyn, but I am very humble to you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you.
No, this is your service, bro. I think all of us have been at the service of this revolution. You have been at the service of our people. May I recall that you were deportee numero uno, the first person to be turned back from Cameroon when you tried to get in there, obviously because of what you were doing for the revolution. And I know you continue to do it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It sends chills down my spine for that vivid recollection. It's what, maybe getting to 2 years today. After that experience, I do strongly hope that we as a people are working with you within our generation, and the synergy between you, some of you who are older hands within the struggle, and try to refocus us to get back into why we got into this struggle in the first place. So thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. I think what we have all kind of agreed is that our revolution is in danger at the hands of people who either want power or want money, or have misused both. So let's cover these money issues, which you covered so extensively in your video interview. Let's begin with the issues around Barrister John Frusso. I was taken aback by the level of revelation that you were giving, to the extent that you mentioned that contacts had started with the Kamto folks, with Nigeria, and that the wolf he was crying was really him in the hen house.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Barrister So was delegated by AP FAKO to go to Nigeria with the Kamto folks. I think the Kamto folks had planned a meeting. They were going to meet the Buhari government, somebody in Asoro. So Eli Smith was the one who gave the contact to the Kamto folks to the AP. Barrister So was delegated to go to Nigeria to represent him. He was also supposed to go to Ghana. I think the Kamto folks had another meeting in Ghana. Once he got there, unfortunately, the meeting was cancelled because of the elections. He later on indicated that he wanted to negotiate another meeting with the vice president, but I personally told him that I did not see the need for him to stay there because staying there was costing us a lot of money. So my surprise with him pointing the accusing finger on Sissoco talking to Kamto folks, which was one of the reasons that he gave to allow Sako and the other folks to peddle the impeachment, was a little bit baffling to me, because he said, if you have been talking to these folks in November, you are the same individual who told us that Michelle Doki, a prominent Kamto lawyer, was working with the lawyers for the defense of the leadership. How can you be the same individual that is decrying now that Sissoco has fired you, and now the Kamto lawyer is the one representing him, which was again not even true. Since I was there from the beginning, I knew that it was all about the money.
Speaking of the money, you mentioned that it was like 37,000 burned in 3 months?
Correct.
And I mean $37,000, not franc CFA.
$37,000 between October and January. The only reason that really got us or myself to bring in Sissoco and Barrister Shufai, because Barrister Shufai and Barrister Yembe are the individuals, I think, working with the lawyers. Some of the lawyers are coming there pro bono because of these two lawyers. When I had a tip from one of the lawyers who said, it doesn't seem we are having any of that support. And I raised that issue to him. I said, hey, Senior Barrister, this is a concern that I have from some of these lawyers. What is going on? I need us to address this issue. Let me know the number of lawyers that you have given money. And we got into a quarrel. He said, I cannot ask him those questions. We are here in the diaspora. They throw this thing that they normally throw in our face, that you are here in the diaspora, you don't know what is going here on the ground. You cannot ask me those questions. And besides, I'm not going to give you any list for any individual that I have paid. All of them have refused. That is that we're just talking about it now. How did you know that all of them have refused to give you a list? So he brought a lot of quarrel. By then, I'm giving him $5,000 when he got here cash, which he told me he was going to use for the habeas corpus. He went to Boston, he had additional $2,000, so he left here with about $7,000. Got back there about a week later, he called again and said all of the money was finished. He needed an additional $5,000 to file in the habeas corpus for the additional detainees who came from Taraba. That got him into argument with Barrister Beshia, who actually recruited him. That how much do they actually file in for habeas corpus in Cameroon that you are asking all of this money? It got so heated to the point where they had to exchange all of these insults, and Barrister Beshia refused to talk to him anymore. That is when I got in the medium of it. Then the first time that the leaders were supposed to appear in the military tribunal, he sent me a WhatsApp message, which I think I had a screenshot, something like that, and requested that they needed about 7 million francs, which would have been 200,000 francs per lawyer. And I said, Barrister, this is a little bit very expensive. And there were 35 lawyers. We managed to send him $11,500. And when that money went down, one of the lawyers called me and said, I know you told me that you are sending support 200,000 for each lawyer. But I have seen Barrister, so you're giving just about 10,000, 25,000 to about 10 lawyers. If he spent, the most he spent was about 1 million francs. I said, So that is what prompted me to bring to his attention. So myself and Sako and Sebastian really did not know what to do, because We're in a situation where if we went public, our people would not understand, given his profile, nobody would have understood that we had issues about money. So I said, okay, the only thing that I think Sebastian wrote a letter to send to him that we need him to give us a proper accounting on the monies that we have given to him up to that point. So when he refused, that's when I brought in, that is Shufai and Siseko himself. He said the only person who could solve that, because Sako had shifted the whole thing to me, he said, you deal with it, Brado. He said the only person who can solve this problem would be the client. So they took up the issue with him and they requested him to give them a proper accounting of who he has paid. There was a quarrel, so they decided now to appoint a case administrator. So, but before even getting to that point, I think in December they were supposed to appear in court the second time. He sent in another, he had reduced that amount moving forward. He said, okay, 100,000, no longer 200,000. So for the 35 lawyers, we were supposed to send 3.5 million, but I only raised $6,000, which I sent. At that same time, the activists, that was the period of the shutdown.
Yes.
When they decided that they were going to shut down.
Have a lockdown.
For the lockdown. So the activists raised $8,000, which Eric Cato called me and said he wanted me to send that money to Pakistan. So, which he did. So if you add all of those amounts with the $1,500 that we spent for him to go to Nigeria, it amounted to about that $37,000 something.
Talk to me a little bit about the accusation of there being some check from the public treasury for 500 million francs CFA destined to Siseko Ayuktabe. Who was raising this?
Yeah, I think that thing came from Ellie Smith, which to me, I think, as I had warned my source, I said, my fear was Ellie Smith being a federalist. I think he planted that information purposefully to cause division among us, the restorationists. Because who is supposed to be the beneficiary to this information? When we come out and come across as being chaotic, disorderly, and fighting, then the federalist is supposed to stand out as the most reasonable person. So the information came from Ellie Smith that Siseko was talking with this Emmanuel Sims, and Emmanuel Sims is linked to the director of a civil cabinet at the presidency. So from those channels, that's where he got the information that they were going to write a check of 500 million to Siseko, and they have already prepared the document and they have gone right to Treasury. They were going to issue that check to a third party. And once that check was charged by that third party on behalf of Siseko, then Siseko will come out and call for cessation of hostilities, and then they should call for dialogue. That is what Ellie Smith said. Sako took that information to his cabinet, told them that this is the information that they have, and they have evidence. Evidence that they were referring to was they were hoping that they were going to get that check that they said that they have written to be delivered, and then they will have the evidence that this is the check and this is the amount of money. It ended up that Ellie Smith later found that it was not true.
And did he indicate so?
Yes. He himself said John Fu was childish to even take the information out when they cannot substantiate that with evidence. I think he made that audio and recounted and said he is not sure that Siseko was compromised, and now he is not sure that there was a check that was ever written in the amount that he himself had suggested in the beginning. And then Sako has this information, Taristanso has this information. So why would they sit quiet when they know that the information that they had used to try to vilify the leadership in jail turned out not to be true? They decided to sit quiet and allow their attack dogs to continue in this whole charade of vilifying the poor guy who cannot even defend himself.
There's a section of the video where you went after Elvis Kometa as the chairman of the Restoration Council. Some of your words were absolutely devastating. You said Kometa stabbed Siseko on the side, on the back, on the front, and there was just a big bunch of stuff that you put in there about the South African cabal, about the justification for, going after everyone. Could you speak to me very briefly about what the role was, what you believe Chairman Kometa did that was wrong?
Yeah, thank you, Ntumfoyn, for that question. And I think my relationship with Chairman Kometa. We have come a long way, and it saddens me to get to this point. I have never been so taken aback and shocked by the role that he has played. I mean, if you wake me up, if something had happened to me and you woke me up and say, this is what Chairman Kometa, the role that he has played, I can put my entire family on the line and said, no, you cannot say that. He cannot. He goes out and goes to the shop and buys food and come in and share with me. He goes to Nigeria, he comes back and he buys food, he makes sure that he brings something to Brado. And I'll be very honest with you, when all of this happened and I told my wife that this is what Chairman Kometa has done, she was stunned. The point that the chairman had just gone to Nigeria, brought some fish and some gari. He said, I don't think that we should eat this food. Something is not right. I am beginning to be afraid of this struggle. Now, what happened? Chairman Kometa had been on a consistent basis against SAKO, the way SAKO treated him. He felt that SAKO would not listen, SAKO would not pick up his calls, just like everyone was complaining that AP SAKO is not communicating, and people were frustrated. So he called the first meeting in his house. It was around April. And we went there, myself, Ebini, Baripu, and I think Josh Font. That is in that meeting that I began to say, look like we have problem here with SAKO. In that meeting, he said his spirit told him that he should stay away from your boy, Milanatam, and anything that is close to Milanatam. And Sisi Ebini said, no, you cannot say that. It is very important for you to know that as a leader, you should be open to work with everyone because things can change. So it was on that day that Kometa and everybody there tried to refocus him and say, you know what, it's about the struggle. And Kometa laid bare his mind. Things did not change. About 3 months later, there was a second meeting saying that he's fed up with SAKO, something needs to be done. That is a meeting that resulted with the removal of Dr. Santos from the Undersecretary of Health to the Secretary in charge of relationship with the Restoration Council. I think if you can remember, Santos decided to leave the cabinet very, very angry. The third meeting was in November or December. In that meeting that was December, we had Professor Kasina Nyangwe, Olanjo Litumbe, Pan Dangam, Governor Achu, Joseph Ebini, Prince Kafine, Victorian Bolanga, Leonard Ponji, and Editoria. That meeting was the meeting that he said it looked like everything with the IG is going down. And he cannot take this anymore. He needs advice and direction on what to do to salvage this situation. So Mola John Litumbe was really not happy that if you are having issues with the leadership and SAKO is a leader, why is SAKO not here? We cannot try to build a leadership structure where instead of facing the individuals and addressing the issues head on, we would hold up a meeting and then try to talk about an individual. So, but we ended up impressing on Mola and we made some recommendations and we gave those recommendations to him to, even with the structure of the struggle, of the governance of the struggle, there was a 4-tie structure. So they gave it to him. Up to this moment, it has not happened. So once we got access to the leadership in jail, I can tell you that just like I talk to them on a regular basis, that is the same amount of time that Chairman Kometa speaks to them, speaks to Seseko, speaks to Bam4 and Professor Awasu on a regular basis. Imagine yourself in a situation like where they are, and then you have your highest authority in your own institution pummeling you every day that you don't tire. This guy has to go. There is just nothing that it is enough. You have enough. So with all this pressure that is putting on Siseko that something needs to be done, if something is not done, then the struggle might just completely go down the drain. That was the situation that he has expressed Siseko. So Siseko was confident that since he is the chairperson of the Resolution Council, that is the sentiment in the Resolution Council. He was making that decision based on Kometa's.
You mean the decision to revoke the government, to recall?
All the government, yes. Because like I said, I told him, I said, me, I am kind of a little bit political savvy. I read the
tea leaves.
Yes, I read the tea leaves. I said, if you make that decision now, a lot of the people will not even go to the bottom of knowing that this is how you got to making that decision. There will be a lot of noise, and it will be easy because you are not here to defend that position. You'll be relying on others to defend it, and then anybody who will try to do it would be easily tagged by supporting you, and it's an LROC agent because you are in there, you are being controlled by the Republic. Chairman Kometa's persistent complaint and recommendation that the only reason FAKO is there is because they have not found somebody to replace him. So somebody was found to replace him, and the decision was made. Even the day that decision was made, Chairman Kometa was in North Carolina. We called him, and it looked like he was playing the hanky-panky game, either, oh, I am watching the soccer, oh, I am at a graduation, and then just like that. So people did not even make that decision on that day. The activists now stepped in. And I think the general argument there was Sesoko should hold off with announcement of the recall, while FAKO should also recall the 73-man cabinet, because FAKO and Chris said the Resolution Council had vetted the cabinet, but Kometa told us that that was not true. But Kometa was not in that meeting. Kometa now came into the meeting the next day because Chris had put out a notice that whatever the activists had put out there that FAKO was going to withdraw his government is not true. They should not take it seriously. So Sesoko and his people said, okay, we'll go ahead and recall the government if that is the game that they are going to play. So the activists quickly brought in Kometa. Kometa came in and declared that the cabinet was not vetted, but if FAKO was adamant that it was vetted, what was even the procedure to vet, and they started doing that.
One of the things that you came back on several times was about the insistence of not picking a bone with any segment of our population. But when you laid out everything, it appeared that there were meetings planned specifically to vilify certain leaders. You mentioned Choyaba, you mentioned Akwanga, Milan Atam, to try and make sure that they would not get anywhere close. Was this only Kometa doing it? Was it FAKO? Was it everyone? Was it the entire cabinet?
No, it was not Kometa. The machinations to vilify and eliminate certain leaders was not Kometa. I think this is not even thinking it was FAKO's entire design. The reason that the fight started with SCBC, they actually told us, all of us, that SCBC allowed Congress to go on the air. And I think before Akwanga even went there, it was Sesoko Ebini's persistence that no, they should allow Akwanga to go. Once Akwanga did that, both him and Chris were furious. And then Milan, just like I indicated earlier, that he said his spirit has told him that anything Milan Adam should distance himself from, should not even go close. That he would err on the side of being cautious than to say the same thing that he felt Sesoko should, or the Nera 10 should inform him. So that prompted that investigation. And I can tell you that I have been there in that cabinet. I don't think any cabinet member, for me, I did not see it, had seen that, the report of the investigation. And I pointed out to him on a personal basis. He said, listen, AP, this investigation is going to bring us a lot of headache because, one, we do not even have the resources to do a proper investigation. Remember, if you're going to do a proper investigation, you might have to send people to Nigeria. And you're going to go to Nigeria, you might need to subpoena the records or the telephone records of even the leadership. And then Ghana, and then here in the US, and then in South Africa. So do not even get into that whole investigation stuff because it would cause problems. But because Milan was supposed to be the target, Akwanga, because of what Akwanga said before the ARCC. So I think his crime was just an obvious opponent anyway, that he didn't think that they can cohabit. So after that investigation came out and pronounced the results, and then put out the announcement that all of these individuals who have refused to collaborate would have nothing to do with the interim government until that commission reverses that decision. So my question is, how did you end up start working with Akwanga when that commission has not reversed
the decision? But tell me, why was it so difficult for the leaders in jail to provide, perhaps to all of us, I think that there has been plenty of time right now, to indicate even to some extent what had happened at Naira?
Thank you for that question. And that is one of the reasons during the activist meeting to try to reconcile this present situation that we find ourselves. People got so angry to the point where he said, Bible carrying pastors, you cannot tell the truth. I came to the cabinet, the first meeting, let me just pick it back a little bit. The first meeting that he had was with myself, Kometa, Chris Anu, and AP FAKO. In that meeting, unfortunately, Chris was supposed to be the one to take down the minutes. But Chris was driving, so I ended up taking down the minutes. So in that meeting, we agreed that he was going to have a series of meetings with the various arms of the IG. And I was now delegated to plan those meetings. So we planned all of those meetings. It started with the Restoration Council. It followed with the activists. We went to the country coordinators. I think he spoke to Anyangwe. He spoke now to, on term that he was going to speak with the cabinet. AP FAKO came along. And cabinet was mad. But in one of those joint meetings, they gave us a complete rundown of what happened in Naira, from when they got to the hotel, many minutes they stayed there, the individuals who picked them up, and where they took them to, and then how many days they stayed there from the car that they transported them when they got to the airport, and then they were bundled into the Cameroon military plane and taken to Yaoundé. They took turns to tell the story one after another. And then they also told the story to Barrister. So for Barrister so to come out and say that he was not told why or what they were doing at the Naira hotel, then you will ask, what did he file for the habeas corpus?
Let me shift it a bit into something else, which was perhaps for me the most shocking part of your entire revelations. You said that about 95% of the total disbursements that happened had to go through the office of the president. Is my recollection correct?
The 95%, which means he had to approve that, correct?
Okay, so the 95% of what he had to approve, which was anything above $2,000, had to go through the office of the president. And the question that really bothers me here is that, you know, I worked with you at Morris. I know how strict you are. I know how professional you are. And, you know the admiration I have for the work that you've done. But I was a bit startled by the fact that at the interim government, it was like you had no control of what was going on. Did you turn into a yes man?
No, and that is why you saw that I indicated that I started having problems with him from March or April of last year. Initially, they had that the Treasury Director would approve up to $5,000. So when I came in, I said, no, $5,000 is a lot of money. Before you realize it, 10 approvals, you have $50,000 gone, without the hierarchy actually knowing what is happening. I reduced it to $2,000. I said that is the maximum that the Secretary of State can approve. Anything above that should be approved by the President. And I said every department has to send a designee or the Secretary of State. If they send an invoice from the Department of Communication, if it is not Secretary Chris, I am not going to recognize that invoice. Because I wanted each Secretary of State to take responsibility of what is happening in their department. Now, when I said he signed 95% of these invoices, you should understand that these are the invoices that came from the department. So if the invoice was legitimate, like for the TV payment, 12,000 when we started with a SCPC, then I would send it to him to review, and then I approve. And then for the GOD, the ASC payments that were supposed to go through Department of Homeland Security, every time that they put in an invoice like 100,000 to purchase this and this stuff, I will send it to him. He will review it and then approve it before we get the treasurer to do the disbursement. So it was not like a process where everything was just flying. No, so when these invoices came from the department and we see that they were necessary, once he approved that, we can disburse. Now, the reason why I said the money went through the presidency for the Department of Homeland Security, the ASC, because initially the money was going through John Egiawan, the Secretary for Homeland Security. And then we had all these complaints from Ground Zero persistently that things were not, the money was not trickling down to them. So he came to me and said, you know what, I refuse that. I refuse continuing to disburse the money to ASC. So they got angry, took me out of their forum. I said, I don't care, because I cannot be disbursing money. By then we spent just about $100,000. So something like that. So I saw that coming. I said, no, I will not disburse the money. So he is the one who came to me and said, all right, this is the way we're going to do it. Every money that is supposed to go to ASC, he will send it through my office, through his executive assistant, Comrade Sebastian Ariko. And then he would send it to Ground 1 or Ground 0, and then he would notify the commanders here in the diaspora. So I was confident that this money was getting to the final destination, until the last amount of money that we sent was in, around July or August for $94,000. We were going to buy a lot of stuff, and I realized that they didn't buy it, and I got it profiled with the ASC, and then they said, this is the amount that we have collected from the IG.
Was that amount 94,000 or smaller?
No, it was the total that they have collected from March. The total amount was 170,000 or so. And I said, you people must be joking.
And that is opposed to how much that had been disbursed?
A total about $500,000 to $600,000 dollars. So I said, are you people joking? And I didn't take it seriously. I said, this is just a joke. You can't say you took $170,000. All right. They said they were going to do their audit, and then they did the audit. They gave it to him. He never gave it to me. And then I kept insisting, finally.
You mean they gave it to him, Dr. Sako?
Yes, Dr. Sako, correct. And that's why I keep insisting that he should call his office to give us a proper accounting of almost $360,000 that was supposed to go to this particular destination, that ASC is now saying that they did not receive, and they don't even, with their commanders have not confirmed that that money came to them. So that is where we are. If he can actually now get us evidence that the money went to commanders directly and they have records to show, because they didn't just wrap this money in the plastic paper and throw that to Ground 1 or Ground 0. Even if you put it in somebody's account here, you can see that trail. Or you did a money transfer using any of these money transfer platforms, maybe Western Union, World Remit, or any of them. So the onus is on him to say, okay, Brado, you are indicating that this amount of money left from the department through the presidency for Ground 0. Do you confirm that the money left Brado's office and came to this account? Yes. Once you confirm that the money got to us, then it is your responsibility from there. It is not Brado's responsibility anymore to follow the trail to say the money actually went down to Ground 0.
Explain to the Ambazonian listening now, how was this money disbursed? Was it just that you gave them a bank card and they could take the money out? Or were you moving the money from one bank account controlled by the Secretary of State for Economy and Finance and moving that money to another account controlled by the presidency?
No. The interim government has two accounts. One of the account is a business account, and the other account is a non-profit account. No one should say that there are no records. The records are there. When I came in, they were still doing these things manually, and I said, no, we will need a quick accounting software to properly document these transactions, which I got QuickBooks and I set it up. And then I decided that, okay, we're not going to be writing checks. I don't want to write a check the next minute I don't remember. We are going to move this money online. So if money was supposed to come to your department, I would ask you for a Bank of America account. So I will transfer that money from, once that approval process is completed, I will transfer that amount from our account to your account. So there is a trail online. So there's no way you are going to refuse that you did not receive
the money.
Yes, because the money left from us and is showing in that bank account. Bank of America is not going to say we gave money to Ntumfoyn, but when money did not get to your account, there is a trail. So all of them, and I think that is the reason why you see that no department, no secretary has actually come out to say, oh, the money that is showing or is reflecting in my
against my department
is not accurate. There can be minor consistency, but I indicated that everybody should review the account. If there is a problem, indicate. I will go back and review the records.
Is that possibly how we heard that someone like a lawyer Bobga had spent a huge amount versus the real amount?
No. The problem that happened with Barrister Bobga is the auditor jumbling the numbers. And then because Bobga's name was in the only name that was there, the other ones were the departments. So he took all of those numbers and said it reflected on Bobga. Bobga was there for about 1 month. How could he spend $60,000?
You mentioned someone like Dr. Johnson Tata, and you said, you know, he was spending money like a drunken sailor. That's not your words, but it sounded like that when you said it. How was he able to do that? Was it like he didn't have a limit, that $2,000 limit did not apply to him?
Very good question. Dr. Johnson Tata is a unique case. He got to the point where he was even making deposits. He's not part of the treasury, but he was making deposits. Now, when I was making these purchases, I'm sorry I have to take you a little bit back. When I came in, they had just a foundation. So I said, we would be very limited with the laws and limitations of using money from a 501c to engage in some of the activities that the government was going to engage in. So I advised that we should set up a business entity, which would be easy for us to spend money as a business than using the money for a 501c. So we created the Ambazonian Consulting, which is the business arm of the ID. So Ambazonian Consulting can legally consult with Ambazonia Foundation, which is a 501c. When I was going to incorporate that Ambazonian Consulting, I saw the name of Dr. FAKO in the cabinet that Seseku had appointed as the Undersecretary for Foreign Affairs. And I realized that he was here in the Maryland area. So I called him and I told him that, listen, I do not want to be on this incorporation alone. For transparency, it's good that there should be another individual. By then, I've never met him. It's good that there should be another individual so that tomorrow, if I'm not available, there should be somebody that can do continuity. So he agreed. That's how I got him as a partner in the creation of the Ambazonian Consulting. So as a partner, when he came as the acting president, I handed him all the documentation. We went to TD Bank and created a bank account. So he became as a signatory to that account because he's a part owner. So he took a debit card. That is how he got a debit card on the day that we went and created that account. That debit card was just to be used when he wants to travel to either buy the flight and the hotel. So it is that debit card that he was using, and it's a debit card that he gave to Dr. Tata to make most of these purchases. Because they made the purchases came to my office, and then Dr. Tata will come and drive and pick them up. And I keep wondering, what is this thing that you guys are buying? And what is it that you people took the authorization to be making purchases? And it got to the point where I spoke to Sebastian. I said, I am not comfortable with what is going on. So Sebastian, when I raised the issue with Dr. Tata said, it is a presidency that controls finance. Finance does not control the presidency. So if you see all of these issues happening, FAKO, there was no invoice. He did not respect the internal rules and procedures. They never sent in an invoice request to the Department of Economy and Finance. Every other department did. I have no problem with any of the departments. So it was his own presidency and his expenditure that he never sent in any request because he had the credit card.
One of the things that Ambazonians have now understood very well is why there's been such a mixture with the audit, and you spent some time, you spent about 45 minutes on the audit issues in that video. Why is it has been so difficult for anyone to wrap their heads around what was going on with the numbers? I mean, we understand now that there will be an audit report released. The question would be, is that part of why you're coming out now, so you can counter the report before it comes out?
No, Ntumfoyn, it is very unfortunate. I am very happy that you have worked with me before. You know how disciplined I am. The internal procedures that I put together clearly stipulates that we're supposed to have biannual audits, internal audits, and then an external audit once a year. The first quarter that I came in and they adopted the leaders, it was chaos. There was really nothing done. At the end of the first quarter, I collected the information that the previous treasury was already using, and when I got the software, I entered that information in. The second quarter, I started entering the information, but I could not get all the clarification from the presidency because he was not, since I earlier indicated that he was not requesting for or submitting his invoices to me. They were just doing the purchases with the debit card. So if I go online and see a purchase for 3,000-4,000, it is hard for me to decipher and say, okay, this is an asset that they have bought, then I have to register that as an asset, or this is just an expense. So it delayed even those reports coming out on time. So we did not do the first audit that was supposed to be during the second quarter. So in the third quarter, we got this guy, Dr. Metuge, in September. He issued me a letter that he wanted to do an audit of my department in September. It was an engagement letter. So I responded to him that, okay, I will be ready. I was in South Africa. First thing I gave him that I knew that was going to help him to properly audit the interim document was the internal policies and procedures, because that is the document that guides the financial environment of the IG. Because they kept saying that there was no treasurer. But Dr. Elena Konji has been the treasurer. I met her there. When I go in and said there should be continuity, I can't just get into their setup and decide to start removing people around. So it was her that I continued working with. So I gave the auditor that document. I gave him online access to the platform that we're using for my trip BOYO, which is a mobile course. I gave him PayPal access. I gave him Braintree, and then I gave him access to all the bank accounts, except one that the treasurer had. So I knew that he had this information for revenue. He had difficulty signing onto it. He said we should do a Zoom call. So we did a Zoom call like this, and I walked him through to log in, and it made me understand that he had logged in to some of the account and they were getting that information. So I knew that he was collecting the revenue information from these three basic sources that we have. I said, when I finish with the entering the expenditure, when I get the report from the president, I would submit you the expense report. So I ended up sending him the expense report, hoping that he had already captured the income from all of those sources, because I knew that as an auditor, first of all, get your own records, and then you can run them with the records that we have. So I wanted him to get the generic records from Braintree independently, from PayPal without me giving him the reports, and from the bank account and mobile cost, he should run. I told him how to run the report, so that whatever he's going to get from there, he was going to corroborate that with what I have in the bank account. I was surprised when Chris went out and attacked me That is when people tried to reconcile and whisper that they were going to shut down ABC. So he came back and was fighting viciously. He went and attacked me that I have refused the audit. So I was stunned. And I called Ayub and I said, when did I refuse to do the audit? Ayub said, the auditor said, I gave him just the expense report. I refused to give him the income. And the assets. So I said, wow. I went out now and presented the screenshots to Ayub. I said, how can they say that I didn't give him what he needed? Look at the screenshots. So it caused all this noise to the point where FAKO decided now to do an executive order that he should fly in and come in and do the audit. I didn't argue no.
Fly in from London, you mean?
Yes. We paid, I think the flight was $1,000 or something. And then his daily stipend was $50. So he was here for, I think, 9 days or something. And it came up to about $400 or $400. So he flew in from London after all of that noise, and me and Chris had gone back and forth. And I said, anything that you want from me, please let me know so that I should provide it to you. If I don't have the information, go to the treasurer. He never complained to either FAKO himself or Dr. Ayub that Brado refused giving him any document. So he left. I knew that everything was okay. He submitted the results on the 15th. Even in those results of the audit that he submitted, he did not mention that I refused to give him any document. Not still.
I mean, I know this is a very distressing topic for Ambazonians when they consider how much good this kind of money could have done for the revolution. Do you even think there will be an audit one day, an audit report, a credible audit report?
Yes, I think, let me just get to the bottom of it. So I told Kometa that I was going to respond to the audit. I responded to the audit. If you see the report that I have out there, there are two reports. The original report and the report where I have my response in blue to the audit. I sent it to Kometa. He said, send it to Chris Chopper, the secretary. I sent it to Chris Chopper, and I sent a copy to FAKO, and I asked FAKO that share it with the cabinet. The noise was deafening about the audit. So FAKO himself decided that the cabinet should have a day and review the audit. So they called for a cabinet meeting and they put out the audit. I gave him my own copy. I said, share it with the cabinet because I already responded to it. So during the cabinet meeting, before they started, I said I needed to ask two questions. I need to know whether this audit was for the entire government or the audit was limited to Department of Finance and Brado. And the auditor said it was for the Department of Finance, it was for the entire government. And I said, no, that is not true. IM said, well, the title does not say that. I said, exactly. The title says audit report for the Department of Economy and Finance. And the engagement letter said the audit was supposed to be for the Department of Economy and Finance. So immediately I said so, it looked like it was already planned. He went ballistic and said, oh, it looked like I'm hiding something. Because I even said they should change the title. I said, no, they cannot change the title. If you change the title, it will not reflect the type of audit that he did.
Yep.
We have to maintain the title because that is exactly what he did. Even the audit that he is claiming that he did for myself, he did not even question me, did not ask me a single question. So they decided to recall the audit and they said they were going to put in another committee to redo the audit. So me, I indicated them that as far as I'm concerned, I will not do any audit with Dr. Ekube because he has demonstrated open bias towards me. I have him on an audio record talking bad about me after the audit. I showed that to even Kometa, and Kometa said, well, he will not even accept the results of that audit based on that audio.
It is my understanding that there was more money involved with my trip to BOYO than any money that you were holding at the level of the Ministry of Economy and Planning and Finance. How much more money was there in my trip to BOYO versus what you were controlling?
I said my trip to BOYO, the planning, the fundraisers, I was completely alienated. They actually did not get me involved. There was deep animosity between myself and the director of my trip to BOYO. because the AP basically, the idea was to set it completely out of the Department of Economy and Finance. I was not part of even maybe the going out for the fundraiser. I had no clue how much money was raised. Sometimes I just see the money in the bank account. But I make sure that I monitor the money that came in, and that's why I said I could tell exactly how the money was spent, and which is why if you see this spreadsheet that I put out as in the presentation yesterday, states how much money came in. In the mobile cost platform, they were taking a 2.5 to 3.5%. Total about 580,000 came in. When they take out everything, we probably have about 570 or so. Within that 570 that came up from that platform, 400 and something was through checks, and about 130 came in through PayPal. If you combine that, it gives you about that 570 or so. And then from the ones that the MANYU team themselves took from the country coordinators and the fundraising that we went around, it was about 193,000. If you add 193 to 5 something, you're already about 700 and something thousand. And then I raised from other donors, and the one that was sent to me about 34,000 was some onlines. And then the treasurer raised 10,000 something from the House of Law. So if you add all of that, that's what gave us about $811 to $813,000.
One of the things that you mentioned in the video, and I may be mistaken here, was that you suggested that there was a new platform that was going to be launched next week. Is it a new platform for managing resources on behalf of Ambazonia? Is it on behalf of the IG? Is it on behalf of a new group? Is this something that repairs what's going on already? And how would that be different, for instance, or wouldn't that clash with the one treasury that all the groups said, let's get together and try and put together one treasury?
I think the idea of one treasury, before you guys even came up with that idea, during that SCLC meeting, I had a conversation with Lambert, and I told him that I had already came up with an independent financial structure that was going to be inclusive. My idea about an independent financial structure was to get all the frontline movements to be part of that independent structure. And then we can have country coordinators representation from defense and representation from the cabinet. So the cabinet doesn't have absolute control over that independent financial structure. And that's the structure that I call Bank of Ambazonia, to be Board of Governors. Just like African Development Bank, the same structure, but this is going to operate like a shadow bank. You have existed in a shadow government. You know exactly what role a shadow government is supposed to play. There's an opportunity, then it becomes the real thing. We're going to try to roll out a new citizenship levy platform and roll out a new project. If it works well, Ambazonia can adopt that. But what I want...
Isn't it counterproductive even to that, if a process like that was being set up and a platform was being set up, without so much as making sure that there isn't division, that there isn't two IGs, for instance?
As I have tried to clarify, given our present dispensation, I think it will be, I felt that maybe using it at the micro level with the counties, even if tomorrow we evolve to have all the other movements involved. Because right now I have planned to have meetings, consultation with the country representatives. We're not going to roll that out without us having this meeting. But the basic framework is there, which is something that I thought, even if everybody does not agree, there's a basic framework, something needs to be done.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think one of the things you should never say when you start an interview is to promise that it's going to be short. This was definitely not short. But I'm really grateful that you were available to do this. I know that it is a little short on the detail with respect to what you did on the video, so many of our listeners here on Ambazonia Calling can still go back and listen to the video. I recommend that everybody should watch it. It helps us understand what has happened, where we're going, and understand the mistakes that have been made, I believe that there will be in the coming days other people coming up with their own side of the story, and Ambazonia would be better off for it. One thing that I could say, because you said it several times during the interview, was, you'd work with me and I had worked with you, and that I could testify to the rigor, the professionalism of your work. That much I can say before I close this interview, to say, yes, I can testify. I have had to face myself the rigor of having to whether I did what I needed to do with any expenditure at Morris, so I can say that for sure. So thank you very much, my brother Brado. I don't know if you want to say any other thing for Ambazonians before you go.
Yes, thank you, Ntumfoyn, and I would pray that we should continue with the leadership. I want Ambazonians to know that I, Echu, have not refused to submit myself to any audit, and whatever information that has been requested from me was provided to the audit, and the audit was done. Brado Tabenya would be available. But we should try to stop this internecine squabbling, this endless bickering for nothing, because it looks like we have turned our focus within than focusing on our common enemy. So I am pleading to all the leaders, no matter our differences, the most important thing is for us to focus on the prize. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, brother. Have a wonderful day. That was our guest on the Devil Unmasked on this edition of Ambazonia Calling.
From our studios here in Washington, D.C., our producer is Jeff McCoy. Our music today is from Ken Wanaku, the monk from Balikumato, William Ford, an ambassador of blessed memory, Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.org, and Prince Ajua Alemanji of Ajam Sonic Kitron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at www.themissionstribune.com, www.compassfreepress.com, and www.africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another day. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.